Okay, it looks like everyone is in. So welcome. My name is Ollie Ben. I'm Vice President of Philanthropy for the Jewish Community Foundation. We are very excited to have you here for this special update on foster youth. So very quickly about the Jewish Community Foundation. We are one of the largest grant makers in San Diego, having facilitated over $2.2 billion in grants into community. We have an asset base of about $900 million that we hold on behalf of individuals, families, as well as nonprofits, including some of the nonprofits on today's call. Um, we are trusted for our management and the careful stewardship of community assets, and we take that role very seriously. A big part of our mission is to advance a just, sustainable, and vibrant San Diego, and we do that in a number of ways. And of course, the majority of the grant making that we facilitate goes into the secular community in San Diego. So it's a responsibility that we take very seriously as neighbors in San Diego. And we work with over 900 families and individuals, each in highly customized ways on their philanthropy. If you are interested in learning more, we actually have an event coming up in person on Wednesday, September 17th. This is for current fund holders and prospective fund holders as well, to understand how their fellow peers, fellow fund holders, make the most of their donor advised funds with the Jewish community, because everyone uses their funds and everyone works with us in different ways. So you'll hear from how JCF helped Seth Krosner document his charitable estate plans without the need for an attorney. How Alexis and Stephen Larkey have gone beyond grant making through JCF, and how JCF helped them actively engage with several different nonprofits. And you'll hear how Nicole Gesher helped turn her son's bar mitzvah project into a meaningful community connection. So if you're interested in that, we'll put the link in the chat, and we will also put in the email that you'll get after this, we'll also put information about that as well. And lastly, I just wanted to share how at the beginning of August, we officially joined forces with the Impact Cube team from the Leash Tag Foundation. That has substantially increased our capacity in a number of ways. One of the ways is that today's host, Sharon Goodson, our Senior Vice President at the Jewish Community Foundation now, when we started talking about doing a foster youth update for the community, which we thought was very timely, Sharon had such a fantastic wealth of expertise and connections in this area that we've been able to put together this fabulous panel today. So we're so delighted to welcome and be in partnership now with our new colleagues from Impact Cubed and the Leash Tag Foundation. So at this point, I'm very excited to turn it over to Sharon, who will take it from here.
Great. Thank you so much, Ollie, and good morning, everybody, with what is a gray and a little rainy morning here in San Diego. But we're thrilled to have you join us for today's webinar. Foster youth is an important group to us here at the Jewish Community Foundation. We have many donors who have generously supported addressing the needs of foster youth for many years. And because of that, we've been able to develop these wonderful relationships in the community and really be able to witness all of the fantastic impact that these organizations have made. We have 3,500 children approximately in foster youth in San Diego County, and they suffer from a number of different issues. And our area is one of the highest in California for foster placements. We have heard that and know that foster youth often experience emotional trauma, unstable housing, school disruptions. They're a greater risk for exploitation. And then when they age out of the foster care system, they face many issues into having a healthy, sustainable adult life. So the organizations that we have here today all serve an important need when it comes to working with foster youth, but they all do different things. And that is one thing we're very excited about. We have a wonderful sector that works in this area, and they offer a great continuum of care, and they often partner closely with each other because they do different things. Um, I am going to introduce our panelists now. I'm very happy to call nearly all of them longtime friends and colleagues. And the only exception being Eric Gabrielson from Friends of the Children, who we have recently met. Eric and his team have been so impressed with their work and their interest in bringing their program to San Diego that we thought it would be great to invite him to join us. Additionally, we have Rebecca Rader, who is the Chief Philanthropy Officer for Voices for Children, Tanya Tarosian, the Chief Executive Officer for Promises to Kids, and Don Wells, the Chief Empowerment Officer at Just in Time for Foster Youth. So let us get started. We're going to have some formal questions, and then if you do have questions that you would like posed, please put them in the chat. We know that we received some of the questions or all of the questions that you had shared prior to the webinar, and we are sure to incorporate those into the questions that we ask and the comments that the experts share. Okay, so let's get going. First of all, if you could each address maybe, starting with Tanya, what are the urgent challenges faced by foster youth in San Diego today, and what do you wish people understood more about about their experiences? And as you share, tell us a little bit about how Promises to Kids addresses this.
Yes, thank you so much, and glad and honored to be part of today's discussion alongside such amazing colleagues. So Promises to Kids, which is our organization, supports foster children, both current and as they exit foster care up to about age 30, with a variety of support services, and to make sure that they are able to heal from the trauma that brought them into care, thrive, develop their own career and future path, and then attain self-sufficiency and happiness as an adult. So that sounds like a lot. And to get to the question about what's currently facing our youth most urgently, there's a couple of things. The first is, in my opinion, mental health. Just like any other young adults and youth, I'll start by saying foster youth are youth. So just as you see, maybe if you have children or you're around other youth that are not in foster care, they experience the same challenges around mental health. What we see with foster youth is it's larger. It's a bigger impact because one of the other challenges is they don't have strong community connections that they've been able to build trust with over time. So any issue that they're experiencing, like mental health, they don't have a community to support them in the same way that others do. With foster care, recent stats are 1 in 4 are attempting suicide. That is an incredible number. And we're seeing it in our own programs where our young adults, prior to, let's say, COVID, just as a marker, we had our program Guardian Scholars, which helps them transition out of foster care into a career path. 0 attempts of suicide in almost 20 years. Just since then, we've had at least 3 who have committed suicide and at least 5 others who have had serious attempts. Every week, I'm getting a incident report of concerning mental health behavior. What we're doing to address it is we started through private philanthropy, specialized, highly trained therapists to address past trauma and other issues with foster youth to make sure that they're getting what they need.
Wow, thank you so much, Tanya. And I know we'll be talking more about this too, particularly with mental health as we go further in the conversation. Rebecca, how about you?
Hi, thank you. I'm Rebecca Rader. I'm with Voices for Children. We are the CASA program for San Diego County. CASA is a moniker for Court-Appointed Special Advocate, and we train wonderful volunteers in our community who volunteer their time. They become, after training, sworn in by the court, and they advocate on behalf of the children that they represent in the courtroom, at school, in the community. And I wholly agree with what Tanya just shared. I think one of the urgent needs is we have a tendency to just think of foster youth as all being the same, and they're not. They need individualized attention. And often when they have a social worker or an attorney, they're focused on urgent family needs, their legal rights. They need one adult that's sort of in their court who listens to them, who builds trust. Many of them don't have trust in the adults in their lives, who can say, you know, I think you need glasses. You haven't been to the dentist. How are you doing in school? You've changed schools 12 times. Maybe we could stabilize that. How are you liking the group home you're in or the resource family that you're living in? So somebody that is there just to be there, not because they're paid, but because they care about that individual child or sibling group. And so that's my hope, is that we can realize that each of them is unique and different and needs different attention.
Great. Thank you so much, Rebecca. And Don.
I'm Don Wells, and I'm with Just in Time for Foster Youth. And I'm going to start with just a really quick story, which is how I got involved in this whole area of foster care. I started mentoring two young people back right before the 2000s. It was a young man who was 9, his sister who was 8. They went into the foster care system like a few months after I started working with them. And fast forward 3 years later, because I was able to stay in their lives even though they're in foster care. And the young woman, she was at my house. We were watching Shrek together for the 12th time. She really liked that movie. And she turned to me in the middle of the movie and said, "Why are you still here?" And this gets to what Tanya and Rebecca were saying. She had not had a consistent adult in her life for 3 years straight. And so she was just asking, what is this about? And no young person should be asking that question, why there are adults that are still in their lives. So later on, when I became the leader of Just in Time, we were doing things where we were providing resources and hope people made connections with volunteers. And then we switched that around and says, those connections are the most important things. Human beings don't do well when they're not connected. They don't do well when they don't have a sense of belonging. They don't do well when they're not in community. So I would say that the thing that people, I think, need to understand is that there's relationships and resources. Both of those things are needed. And one without the other is not going to work. You can give people lots of resources. If the relationships aren't there, it's not going to work. Also, if you keep people in relationships, but there's not resources available for them, then that also doesn't work. So we have to do both things in order for people to really have the opportunity to thrive. And as we like to say, become confident, capable, and connected so that they can have satisfying lives. So that's what I would say. This echoes what has been said already.
Great. And maybe just a little bit about Just in Time as you.
Sure. So we serve young people who have aged out of the foster care system, and our vision is, what we state is that we want to make sure that every young person who comes out of foster care will have a caring community waiting for them that will give them the resources and relationships they need to thrive. And we serve from 18, that was always our original thing, 18 until 27. This was back in 2003 when we first got started. But during the pandemic, we also started to serve our alumni. So now we go all the way up to 35.
Great. Thank you so much. And Eric, to round us out.
Thank you, Sharon. Good morning, Eric Gabrielson with Friends of the Children. Wonderful to be here. We are a national nonprofit, 31 years old in 43 locations, and hoping to start up in San Diego. And we are the first and only long-term professional mentoring program in the country. So what that means is we invite young people who have incredible promise, but also face a lot of barriers and obstacles at the age of 4 to 5. And what we do is then pair them one-on-one with a professional paid mentor that we call a friend, who walks alongside them and their families for 12 plus years, no matter what, which is an unconditional commitment. that we make. Our model is distinct, courageous, and proven. We're very data driven. And I would just echo all of my friends here in saying that foster youth face incredible challenges. And I would just add that disconnection is something we think about a lot from their bio family, from their siblings, as well as instability. I mean, you heard school changes, inconsistencies, lots of transition, and that just exacerbates this disconnection. And we believe that and you heard again, a caring, loving, committed adult who makes an unconditional long-term commitment can break that cycle for these young people. So thrilled to be here. Thank you, Sharon, for organizing, and Ollie. And I'll keep it short because I know we have a lot to cover. But
no, that's great. I'm actually going to stick with you a bit to kind of lead us into our next question of, what are you seeing that really is working, and maybe you can even go deeper with the work that Friends of the Children is doing.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, professional mentoring services are proven to reduce entry and re-entry into foster care. And the reason for that is that the program that we work in increases protective capacities in parents and really expands resources to the whole family. And I'll just give you two quick examples of Los Angeles and Texas, where we have done work in over 5 years. And in that time, no youth has either entered the foster care system or re-entered the foster care system. 100%. And one of the reasons we believe this model works is that we make a 12+ year commitment. And there are a lot of prevention a lot of these challenges that young people and families face are long-term. And so we believe that someone who's unconditional in their commitment long-term and is a professional can really do wonders. And so those are just two. I'll also just add, we're in the middle of our third randomized control trial where we're following young people and their families in our program over 12.5 years and seeing some great data of this evidence that I just mentioned.
Great, thank you. Just wondering, with our other speakers, any prevention strategies that you might want to add to Eric's, mentoring, following families, parental service?
I'll talk about some work that we're doing with former foster youth that are also parenting. We've been noticing out of our Guardian Scholars program, which is a career-focused program through education for those aging out of care. We have about 300 of those youth that we support each year. Out of that number, we have around 75 that are parents. Parenting about 120 kids. So, their biggest fear, right, is that they will do something or not do something or not be good enough, and their children will end up in foster care or repeat the cycle. And so oftentimes they'll come and say something like, I'm not capable of this, I don't know. And when we dig into that conversation, it's really about just being a new parent, regardless of your origin story, foster care, not foster care. You hold your child for the first time and sometimes you say, did they really just let him go home with me? And, helping normalize some of the fears and some of the unknowns with our young people is the first step. And then the other piece really is back to what everybody is saying, connection and mentorship. And so we're connecting these young people with each other as a parent group, and then also with mentors. And what we're finding is that just by opening up dialogue and then providing resources and knowledge behind it, it is breaking that cycle. Those children who are being parented by former youth are being parented in a way that is safe, that is building protective factors, and that they're thriving.
Wow.
Could I add one thing to that?
Please.
Kaiser did a study, it was like 10 years ago, where they came up with this idea that there are adverse childhood experiences that shorten one's lifespan and lead to disease and all kinds of things. And recently they've added to it and done the other side, positive childhood experiences. And it just reinforces what we've all been talking about, that we know that if they have somebody that believes in them. And recently I was not in juvenile court, but delinquency court. And there was a child that had a CASA volunteer, and her behavior had been very destructive for about 2 years. And they were seeing a change in the behavior, that all of a sudden she was going to school, she was doing, positive things. And the judge asked her, what's changed? Why you're sort of on the mend, you seem very resilient. And she said, when somebody showed up for me, I realized I was valuable. And if I was valuable, I needed to value myself. And it seems like a simple thing, but it's huge. It's something we take for granted, especially if you've had a nice childhood, or parents that took you to look at colleges or scolded you to do your homework. It makes a difference to have somebody who, and I think from that standpoint, it's healing.
For sure.
I'll just add a little bit to that really quickly, which is that we often hear the same thing, where a young person will say that I had a volunteer who believed in me before I believed in myself, and that started to create a whole different pathway for me. And we actually asked a question for our alumni who are 27 to 35, because we see part of what we do is breaking the cycle of foster care by doing all the things we're doing to help to support them. And we don't have paid volunteers, but we have volunteers who do commit. They'll be working with somebody starting at 19. They're still with that person. They're at their wedding when they are in their 30s, and they become part of the family. So it's creating that connectedness again. And there was a study that just happened where they were talking about connectedness is the thing that is a greater predictor of your health in all ways than your adversity. If you have great relational health, then that counterbalances the things that have happened to you before. So I think that's the common thing, is that, and I sometimes say that it would be better if the foster care system didn't talk about placements as much as talk about connections. So if I have 12 placements, that's not good. If I have 12 connections, that's a whole different mode that I'm in. But placements don't include connections often when you're in foster care. So I think prioritizing connections for young people is critical for different outcomes.
For sure. Could we talk just a little bit, particularly for Tanya and Don, the differences between your organizations? Because we know Promises to Kids sort of spans over, working with older youth. But
yeah, so ironically, at one point we were like sister organizations. We were both under Promises to Kids 501c3 when we were the Child Abuse Prevention Foundation. And it was very clear at that point that Just in Time focused on the older youth, and we focused kind of on the younger youth. As we both evolved and they become an extremely important and independent organization, we've also grown into supporting the needs of youth, which now have extended us to older youth. Many of our youth are supported by both organizations because they need to be, right? Don could talk about his services, but they're incredible, and we don't do those services. We provide, let's say, for that older group, work on specific career development, case management focused around what career are they going to have, helping them through college, helping them through vocational training, and providing a little bit of a scholarship, and that work with mental health wraparound. But at the core of it is their education plan.
Well, and to Tanya's point, Just in Time started at a time when there were almost no services for youth after they aged out.
Mhm.
So we were trying to fill that void. And our initial thing was, we're not going to do anything that somebody's already doing. If there are services for young people, and we just added things over time because our participants were telling us this, we don't have this, we don't have this. So we tried to create a whole ecosystem where everything's connected. If I don't have transportation, it's harder for me to get the job I need. If I get a job, I need to be able to manage my money. And then all the mental health challenges that we've been talked about, which are increasing across the country, where there's just a mental health crisis for young people. When you're becoming a young adult, there's so much uncertainty about how things are going to go for you. And added to all the uncertainty that now exists, where institutions are not the same as they were. People are not even, I just saw a thing the other day where young people are not dating because it's so fraught with anxiety. So, and then that gets amplified for young people who are in foster care who don't have even those supports they would get from the family. So we just try to take a holistic approach to young people. And as Tanya said, we have people who are doing both things because they're able to choose what works best for them going forward. And we initially concentrated a lot on college graduation, because at the time I started, the graduation rate for foster youth was like 6% college, and our graduation rate is it's like 75%. But that's based on those relationships that are there consistently over time. And that's the core of what we do, is creating that community of support. Everything else is on top of that.
Can I also add that our organization, like our community of foster care, some folks will ask me, well, I'm supporting this organization, and then I see this youth there and so forth. Again, like our young people, our children do better when they have a CASA, like proven great. They do better when they're getting services from Just in Time, and they do great when they're also coming to us. And by supporting all of us, you're supporting the whole child, because they are getting something different from each of us. And there's value in the entire community, like Don said, ecosystem, and getting that support, and looking forward to welcoming Friends of the Children to that community when you're in San Diego. I mean, there's like Rebecca said, everybody's individual, but all supports are needed to these young people.
Right. There's so much good work to do, and important work to do. And it's such a good point, Tanya, where you have children who are working with all of you, and maybe with Friends of the Children, we could keep a couple out, because there are still plenty that will need the help. Could we get a little bit more specific about the services that and just how services and knowledge for the children or young adults transitioning out of care? So Don, you shared a bit, as you Tanya, about in I don't know, families where there are parents, active, they're taking their children to look at colleges, they're taking them, et cetera. But then if that doesn't happen, if they're in the foster system, they're living in a group home, what happens? How do they get the information that they need? Even if they're not connected to Just in Time, or what happens to them?
Well, one of the issues has been that once you come out of foster care, then you have to navigate all these things, and it would be hard to navigate it if you had a family, and to be told, you can now figure it out yourself. It's just not. I will go out and talk to people, and I said, so if your child at 18, if you told them to go out and make things work for themselves and don't expect any help from me, would they be able to do that with all the preparation you've given them? Of course not. So why would we expect foster youth to be able to do that? It's just not a reasonable expectation. So again, what we try to do, if 3 different people walked into the door Just in Time, they might end up doing 3 completely different things. We don't even talk about having programs. We have resources and services. So this person may do college bound, but they also may need to get their their apartment set up, and so we provide furniture and help them to move in. Another person might be looking for their first job, and so we put them in a Pathways to Financial Power, and also they take financial fitness where they learn to get to do a budget and do saving for a rainy day fund, and then they're saving and we're matching their savings going forward. Somebody else might come and they are wanting to get a driver's license, but we also find out that they want to get some mental health services, and so we provide that as well. And we see mental health as a basic need. It's not something you do once you got everything else in place and now you take care of your mental health. So we did well. We haven't fully gotten our stats from this past year, but the year before that, we did 2,000 free therapy sessions for a population that has been therapy adverse because it's been used against them and seen as something that didn't benefit me. But now it's become normalized and people do it, and they encourage each other to do it because they can see that it helps them to move forward. So again, our whole thing has been for our participants to tell us what's missing and what we can help with, and then we do those things. And then the things that we maybe don't have access to, we have all kinds of partners, and we will refer to other people for those things as well.
Okay, great. Tanya?
So as far as promises, echo exactly what you're saying around, the transition needs. What we're seeing and what we focus on specifically really is around career development path. And that could be vocational training, and then we provide a small stipend monthly to the young folks as they're pursuing their education or career path. Provide them with a volunteer mentor, case manager, and then all the other resources. So whether it's referrals to other partners or whether it's internal financial coaching, we have groups. We even have established identity groups where our youth have said, because of foster care, let's say I came into foster care, let's say I'm a Latina woman, I was placed with a white family and I never learned my language that I wanted to learn. I don't know that, I don't identify with my culture, and I want that. Same thing we have a Black group, same feeling. It's really around connecting to others around a shared culture. So we have those groups, which are adult community members who volunteer to be group paired with our other youth. So it's really goes back to connection and support. Our newest addition is our Foster Futures program, which is targeted at homeless prevention. So it's similar to other organizations, those that you actually have led some efforts on around guaranteed basic income. So we have a pilot that has 50 former youth who are not receiving any other support, no other housing, no other resources, and we provide them with a financial stipend and then intense services. We just started 6 months ago, and the 50 youth, all of them have remained in safe and stable housing. So,
wow.
Let me just add one other thing. This is around connection. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up, is that we also have the majority of our staff have lived experience in foster care, and it's the people who do the services. It's our marketing department. It's the person who tracks outcomes for us in development. So throughout the organization, there are people who have that lived expertise that allow us to not only make those connections with people when they walk in the door, but also keep us honest with what we're trying to accomplish, so that we're doing really what works and what's most relevant and will create the impact we're looking for.
It's wonderful. It's one thing I love so much about your programs is how much you use, it's not a good word, but how much you hire back many of the participants with whom you've worked. You started to talk more about volunteer and community involvement. And I know the 3 programs rely on volunteers and community, very, very much. I was hoping we could talk more about that. And Eric, love for you to chime in as well. Rebecca, can we start with you? Because the CASA program depends so much on volunteers.
So we have about 1,000 volunteers. They give 10 to 15 hours a month. They go through 30 hours of training. It's not an easy volunteer experience. They have to be cleared by CACI and the FBI databases to make sure that they're safe, but mostly they just have to have a big heart and care about the children. Most of the volunteers will tell us that they got a lot more out of it than they gave. I'm not sure that's true, but I think that's the feeling that they have. I wanted to add one thing from our last conversation. One of the reasons that promises to kids and just in time are so crucial for that age group is even if a CASA volunteer gets them to the age of 18 or 21, a lot of these kids are emotionally more like 12 or 13.
Mm-hmm.
And so they need the resources, you know, once they're past that age where sort of like, oh, you're on your own. They need the help that Promises to Kids and Just in Time provides them because they haven't had sort of the guardrails, you know, or the emotional support to get them there. So
that's a very good point, yeah, for sure. John, do you want to maybe share a little bit about how you might place volunteers in areas of their expertise or interests? Or
So we would not be able to do what we do without volunteers. Volunteers are at the core of Just in Time, because what we try to do is establish what has been mentioned, which is lasting connections. So I'll just give an example. One young person came to Just in Time when she was 19, and her goal was to buy a house in San Diego, which is a big, hairy, audacious goal for a 19-year-old. So she got connected to a financial advisor, we call them asset advisors, who helped her start to, talk about her relationship with money, what she wanted to do, helped her to really formulate a savings program. When she bought a house, which she did at 32, that same person was still working with her all the way along that line from 19 until she got the house, and he's still in her life. He was at her wedding. So we have another volunteer. One of our participants wanted to study abroad. That person gave her air miles so they could go to do the study abroad, and then they flew to Europe and spent a week there with them. They were over across the pond. So anyway, it's those long-term relationships, and if you look at what we do, really it's establishing those relationships where people feel. We talk about caring is when you give something time, attention, energy, and effort. And young people will come to us and they'll have the experience of, I had somebody who was working with me as a social worker, but as soon as I emancipated, I never saw them again. So people are only in my life when they're getting paid to be in my life. And we turn that around to, these people are there because they care about you and they're going to show up for you in that way. And they become part of that volunteers circle, and they get more resources than we are giving them because now they're connected to somebody who has made them part of their community. So the whole community thing, and we have 800 volunteers. Some volunteers do the coaching stuff, some do presentations, some do our registrations at our events. We have one volunteer who's been doing registrations for 12 years at our events. That's what he likes to do. And the participants recognize him because he's always around. And so whatever people want to provide, we find a place for them to do that, because people are able to do different things. I always use the example, I have an uncle who helped me buy my first car when I was in high school because he was really good at that, but he was terrible at relationship advice. He had been married and divorced from the same person 3 times. So I don't go to him for relationship advice. So one of our participants might have 5 different volunteers that they're connected to. And one volunteer maybe will have maybe 12 different people that they're connected to. And we have one person who does have that many. That's why it came to mind. Some of those people have moved away, and when they come to San Diego, they'll stay with her when they come back because they have formed that connected bond.
Wow. That's wonderful. Rebecca? Yeah, no, please. I was going to continue. Go right ahead. Yeah, you got it.
I'll just add, just on volunteers, I love what Don was saying about whatever the volunteer is most passionate about is how we love to work with volunteers at Friends of the Children. We're such an intentional, individualized model where we, again, have a paid professional mentor who walks alongside that youth for 12 and a half years, no matter what. And volunteers are a big part of that. And so any volunteer who says, I want to get involved, we could say, what drives you, whether that's joining the board, which is forming, or hosting a session on financial literacy, or reading, or organizing events, or we meet them where they are, and we really customize it so that it's rewarding, fulfilling, and it's a start of a good relationship is how we view that. Wanted to add that in.
No, thank you so much. Yeah, and I didn't mean to cut you off. Particularly for you, Eric and Rebecca, we had a question come in to help clarify if a child has a let's assume all positive things, and Friends of the Children is here in San Diego this time next year, and they actually, I was going to say, in terms of how you are different than Voices and having a CASA, but then you are not necessarily working with children in foster youth. So I think I'm foster care. So I think I'm getting myself a little confused there. So in terms of the differences with Voices and Friends of the Children, Voices has volunteers who are focused on on the child once you're in foster care. Is that right?
Correct. Correct. And I think there's strength in both models that are different. So we find that the volunteer component is very strong for these kids. I hear this story all the time about a CASA who said, oh, this kid is tough. They're not letting me in. I just keep getting together with them. And at some point, the child will say, you're a really nice lady, but why do you keep coming back? I'm pretty horrible to you. And the volunteer will say, because I choose to, because I care about you. And there's always a breakthrough at that point. However, with Eric, these are people that are trained and seasoned probably in a different way. And I think the lifespan may be different. An average CASA has a case for 3.5 years. Eric's saying that their employees work with them throughout a life, or a childhood, let's say, or into early adulthood. So I think that the two dovetail really well together.
Absolutely, Rebecca, and we partner with CASA nationally. They're a wonderful partner in many, many locations. I know the same will be true in San Diego, because we share best practices. We have referrals. We in many ways we're very collaborative and complementary.
Great. No, thank you. That's terrific. And it's been really neat to see, as we've talked with Eric, Ollie and I, how Eric and his colleagues are, being so intentional about meeting and understanding what's happening with other programs here to be sure that you're adding value, which is really great. It starts in a very positive way. We've hopped around a number of our prepared questions, and I just want to see if anybody has any other thoughts from anything that we've addressed before in terms of outcomes or any opportunities, any partnerships.
So Tanya and I can talk about an epic partnership that we're being developed. So we were tasked by some local funders to say, why aren't you guys working together more formally? Because we do informal referrals and that kind of thing. So we actually put together a group. We invited a lot of people together who were working in the same space. It was around foster youth, preventing homelessness, employment success, and mentoring. And we came up with a group of initially about 8 different organizations that decided we would work together on a formal basis and have an MOU. And it still hasn't gotten completely to the point where it's going to be funded yet, but hopefully that's going to happen soon. But the whole idea was to build an ecosystem of support so that and have that be accessible through a online portal where any youth could go in there and say, here are the things I'm looking for. Each one of our organizations would have a resource navigator that would connect with that young person. And if their organization was not the one that could meet that goal, they would refer them to a resource navigator from one of the other partners there. And we would have shared impacts and shared goals, and we would be working together to make sure that we were reaching those for the young people we were serving. So Tanya, why don't you jump in and
Sure. Yeah, what we found is that all of us work really well together now, but we're also very siloed. You know, we may refer back and forth. We care about each other as organizations. We care about the kids we serve, but there's not currently a one large collaborative that follows a child through its experiences with each of us. And so that's really what we're trying to do is make it more centered about the youth and shared outcomes across programs. And so it would be a really exciting model, I think, that our community can have, that will just amplify impact, reduce any inefficiencies in terms of what happens when a child, you know, is sent to one agency and then another, and they're doing different things. And my hope is that we'll be able to replicate this in other communities. So another piece that I really like about it is that we'll be doing, as I mentioned, shared outcome tracking, but we'll all be in one database system looking at that. And we'll also be able to look at, Don's developed an app where all of the youth can come in 24 hours a day and access services and get connected to other youth, other providers. So I'm excited. I'm hoping that this is going to roll out in the next, you know, few months, and there'll be more to share. But it's pretty incredible to see how many people came to the table for this.
And again, it's resources and relationships, like we've been talking about. So you go in there, even if you're not looking for a resource, you start getting connected to other people, and you have that sense of a community around you while you're navigating those things. And people will say, you should go here to get that because I went there and it worked for me. So that's the way we see it, is creating a space where all those things are happening and it's accessible, easily accessible. To get both those things, both the resources and the connections.
Wow, that sounds so exciting. Please keep us posted. I know for sure that our group joining us today will be really wanting to follow that as well. That's wonderful. I mean, and I'm not surprised, Don, that you created an app. I don't know, why does that just, you know, probably is, you know, one morning you woke up and created an app. No.
Somebody has to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
We had a question in the Q&A about funding sources, and particularly for you, Rebecca, but you all can maybe just briefly share where, you know, sort of the pie chart, like where the majority of your support comes from.
We're pretty evenly divided between government. We do get government grants, pass-through grants, events, individuals, corporations. San Diego's not a big corporate town, but I think we all work that line as much as we can. Everybody, I'm sure, on the screen goes to Rotaries and Kiwanis and speaks wherever they can speak. And is the second part of the question, are there funding threats?
Well, yeah, I think that absolutely, that's where I was going to go to, is, you know, we have this, you know, the new legislation with cuts, you know, federally and state level, et cetera.
So for us, we haven't been hit up from the federal level. We get money that comes through HUD and also the DOJ. But the area where we're feeling the pain is that the state of California is running a deficit. So there's no extra money for any line item. And that gives me a lot of pause. For a long time, the last 3 years, the CASA organizations throughout the state of California received about $60 million that was divided up, and that line item has been slashed. So when I don't sleep on a Saturday night, it's because I'm worried about the state of California, not so much the feds right now, but that could happen. It could happen.
For sure. Anyone? Yeah, Tanya?
So we're philanthropy funded 100%. I mean, we have less than 1% of any pass-through money or government. So we always have been. We believe that it's important to our center point to be predominantly focused on community building community. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is we know what works. We've tested it. We have outcomes to prove it. And sometimes some of the larger government programmatic components are full of some things that work along with a bunch of things that don't. And so we'd rather just be very laser focused on making sure that we can make the biggest impact. Also being able to be nimble and flexible, and just like we're developing that new parenting program and the innovative homeless prevention, we want to have that flexibility. So as far as impact though, to what's going on in our community, everybody, to me, we're feeling it because our colleagues who are impacted directly with federal cuts, they no longer have programs that we're going to have to pick up.
Right.
So for example, an increase in our mental health requests. We're looking at lower capacity to serve other programs. So we're going to have to develop those. So it really is impacting everybody in this community, whether you're a direct recipient of a federal grant or a state fund or you're not.
Got it.
So
And I'll-
mine is really parallel to Tanya's. We only get government funds from the Board of Supervisors, so that's it. And that's like 2% of our budget. Most of our funding comes from individuals as well. And that has not been impacted, but to Tanya's point, we're expecting that some of the other people who are struggling, some of that will spill over to us having to try to pick up the work there. The other thing that I'm expecting to happen also is that a lot of our funders will see some urgency around some other things, and it'll change their priorities. They might say, we need to support public broadcasting because they're really hurting, and so we're going to, at the very least, divide our contribution so that we're doing that as well. So that has not happened yet, but it may happen depending on how things continue to roll out. And we've avoided government funding for the same reason Tanya said, where we have the flexibility to do what we think will work and to make pivots when we need to. We didn't have to ask anybody permission to start doing our alumni. We just decided to do it because it was what's needed. So that's having that flexibility was important to us.
Got it. Eric, maybe just like a quick answer. Sorry.
I'll round this out. Very similar. We are majority private philanthropy funded, supported for a lot of the same reasons shared. Diversification is very important to us because we're long-term. So we look to have an equal split between individuals, foundations, corporations, and government. We are in our 9th cycle with the Office of Juvenile Justice, Delinquency and Prevention, which has been a great partner and remains a funder. But again, echo a lot of that. We're really lifting up our other partners who have been impacted by federal cuts to make sure these young people and families still have resources. So that's been a big part of our focus.
Thank you so much. There's so much good stuff to say, and we also know, in terms of these programs, an hour has been the sweet spot for many of our participants. There was a question that about providing other opportunities, to help, in terms of providing items for apartments, et cetera. I think we'll gather some of those options and share them with folks as well, so that I can turn it over to Ollie, but at least the person on the line won't think that we are ignoring that good point. So Ollie, all yours.
Thank you, and don't hang up. Normally I do a very performative thank you at the end of these sessions, but I actually have a special announcement that I want to make. But before we get there, thank you so much, Sharon, and thank you, Rebecca, Don, Tanya, and Eric, for a fabulous session. This was really really wonderful and highly illuminating and very powerful. So thank you so much for highlighting all the amazing work that you guys do. So here's my announcement. And as I said, this has been cleared by Sharon has no idea what's coming right now, but this has been pre-cleared by Charlene and the rest of our team. I'm happy to share because this is hot off the presses, although I've been sitting on this news for a month now, that the Association of Fundraising Professionals is providing Sharon with an award for Outstanding Professional of the Year. And I will say that, first of all, it's been a privilege to work with Sharon over the last month. But I was on the I was on the awards committee. I had to obviously recuse myself from the category that Sharon was made an award in. But I read all the applications, and not only did two people submit Sharon as for the nomination, but one of them actually submitted a poem about Sharon. So she's very, very highly thought of in the professional community, and for her years of experience. It's a fabulously deserved award. If anyone's interested in joining, it's going to be on the National Philanthropy Day of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, is on Friday, November the 21st, at the Gaylord Pacific Resort. But many congratulations to you, Sharon, and I hope I didn't embarrass you too much.
No, thank you. No, it's like a little choked up, but thank you so much. It's really an honor. I am getting a little an honor and a privilege to do this work, and I've known, these organizations, for so long, like 15 years plus with, Don and Tanya, and so thank you so much for all you do.
Is that a hand raised, Don, or is that a congrats?
No, I just wanted to say well deserved and congratulations. That's all.
Thank you so much.
Great. All right. Well, thank you all very much again for your time. We will follow up with an email with a wrap up of a lot of the information shared today and the recording. But enjoy the rest of your days.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.